When the Curtain Falls. We met at a college theater club. She walked in late during auditions, her hair half-dried from rain, her hoodie oversized and sleeves pulled past her knuckles. Everyone turned to look. Even the director paused mid-sentence. And then she laughed, like she didn't care that she was interrupting, like she was already the star, and we were just lucky to be extras in her scene. That was Mara. She didn't audition, she commanded the room. Every word, every movement, like she was born to be watched. And by the time she stepped off that stage, we all knew she'd get the lead. She did. And I, somehow, got the supporting role, in every sense of the word. Back then, I thought it was fate. I was a tech nerd pretending to be an actor. I joined the club because I liked writing monologues, not performing them. But she made me believe in scripts we didn't write. We started hanging out after rehearsals. Coffee runs turned into midnight walks. She'd call me after shows, rambling about dreams and disasters, about how the audience never saw the real her. They only see what I give them, she once whispered. And I'm really good at giving people what they want. It should have been a warning, but I thought it was poetry. We got together during the spring show. I remember the exact night. We were backstage, 10 minutes before curtain, and she kissed me out of nowhere. Said she wanted to feel something real before faking it on stage again. I was stunned, nervous, alive. After the show, I waited for her outside her dressing room. She opened the door with mascara smudged and lipstick faded. She smiled like she already knew what I was about to ask. So, what are we? I said. She didn't flinch. Whatever we want to be. At first, it was perfect. We'd stay up late in the studio, working on student films, stealing shots of each other when no one was looking. She wore my hoodies, left notes in my laptop bag, held my hand under the table during read-throughs. People started calling us the couple that should have been a movie. But something always felt slightly off. She was always on, always performing. Even when it was just us, even in bed, I'd sometimes catch her adjusting herself in the mirror like she was prepping for an invisible camera. And when I asked why she never opened up, why she never told me about her family, her past, her fears, she'd deflect. Real life is too boring, Jamie. We're artists. We create better things than the truth. I laughed it off. I told myself it was part of her charm. But I didn't see the truth behind that mask. Not yet. The first real crack came in senior year. I wrote a short film for our capstone project, a dark, intimate story based on my own experiences with loss. I poured everything into it. Sleepless nights, rewrites, sketches, soundscapes. Mara read the script, cried, and asked if she could play the lead. I said yes, of course. Who else? She promised she'd treat it like it mattered. Said it was the most beautiful thing anyone had ever written for her. She lied. During the pitch session, I found out she'd secretly submitted her own version of the film, with her edits, her rewrites, and her own name listed as creator. She didn't even tell me. I found out when the faculty chair congratulated her on such a raw and honest screenplay. I laughed at first, thought it was a mix-up, but then I read her version, and I saw the ending she changed. In mine, the main character breaks down and finally tells the truth. In hers, the character never confesses. She walks off stage, elegant, untouched, and leaves the mess behind. Because that's what Mara always did. Rewrite the ending so she never had to bleed. I confronted her the next night. We were in the old theater, just the two of us, lights off except for a ghost bulb above the stage. She didn't deny it. I did rewrite it, she said, brushing her hair back with shaking hands. Because your version was too real. It was ugly. No one wants to watch someone fall apart. They want to watch someone survive. You stole it. I perfected it. I wanted to scream, but I just stood there, stunned, while she looked at me with eyes that didn't blink. Don't be dramatic, James, she whispered. It's just a story. But it wasn't. It was my life. And she turned it into a performance. I left the theater that night without saying goodbye. And that should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Because what she did next was worse than anything I could have imagined. She didn't just steal my story. She turned me into the villain of hers. It started with whispers. Around campus, in the green rooms, at cafe tables near the theater, voices lowered when I entered a room. People who used to call me genius or underrated now smiled politely and made excuses to leave early. At first, I thought it was in my head, until I saw the poster. Pinned to the blackboard outside the Performing Arts Building, printed in bold serif font. The Spotlight Syndrome, a one-woman show by Mara Keene. With a subtitle underneath. Based on a true story of emotional manipulation, stolen dreams, and finding your voice after silence. And below it, her photo, crying, vulnerable, defiant. A martyr framed in shadow. I tore the poster down. My hands were shaking. My throat felt dry. I tried to tell myself it wasn't about me, that it was just a title, a gimmick, that maybe she actually found her voice. But then I saw the teaser video online. She uploaded it to the drama department's YouTube channel, the same channel where my film was supposed to premiere, before the faculty postponed it without explanation. In the video, Mara sat on a stool in an empty spotlight. She looked up into the camera and said, "Have you ever loved someone who only loved your silence?" He said he wrote stories about pain, but he didn't know how to listen to anyone else's. This is the truth he never wanted told. This is my story now. I couldn't breathe. The script leaked a week before the show premiered. It spread like wildfire in our circle, passed around in email threads, screenshots, and group chats. I opened it expecting melodrama. Instead, I found a polished, vicious work of art. She changed the names, of course, but only barely. Jamie, the brooding, obsessive filmmaker who gaslit his girlfriend into isolation. Luna, the brave, radiant actress who sacrificed everything for love and had it twisted into art against her will. Every fight we'd had, every private conversation, every moment of vulnerability, rewritten into scenes that made her look like the phoenix and me the fire. And it worked. She weaponized the very thing I loved about her, her ability to make people feel. Opening night was a campus event. I didn't want to go. I told myself I wouldn't, but I did. I sat in the back row of the old black box theater, hidden under my hoodie, surrounded by students and faculty who once cheered my work. The lights dimmed. A single chair on stage. Then Mara walked in barefoot, in a slip dress, raw and luminous. For the next hour, I watched her tell a story that was ours, only poisoned. She cried on cue, laughed at the right moments, twisted lines I'd written in my script and used them as weapons. Every scene was another dagger, intimate, personal, false in just the right places to make it believable. And when it ended, she stood in silence, arms stretched toward the ceiling like she was ascending. The crowd exploded into applause. Some stood. Many wept. And I sat there in the back row, completely erased. I confronted her after the show. She was surrounded by people, professors, theater kids, even critics from the local press. Everyone wanted to shake her hand. She wore her pain like a crown. I waited until she noticed me. Her face didn't flinch. "You came," she said, as if I was just another fan. "What the hell was that?" I whispered. "Art, James," she replied, tilting her head. "You taught me to channel pain. You should be proud. You turned me into a monster." "No," she said, smiling coldly. "You gave me the costume. I just wore it better. I wanted to scream, to tear the theater apart brick by brick. But I knew if I raised my voice, if I said anything, it would only feed her version of the story. Because Mara was always 10 steps ahead, always rewriting the truth before anyone else could tell it. I left without another word. Outside, it had started to rain again, just like the night we met. Only this time, I wasn't the one watching her enter. I was the one being written out. What I didn't know yet was that the worst part wasn't the lies she told about me. It was what she was still planning to do. Because Mara wasn't done. Her final act was yet to come. After her show premiered, I thought the storm would pass. I thought I could ride it out, let the gossip rot, let the drama kids obsess over it for a few weeks before moving on to the next tragedy. But I underestimated how deeply Mara wanted to bury me. Not just in reputation, but in legacy. She didn't just want her voice heard. She wanted mine erased. It began with the email from Professor Holland. Short, polite, brutal. "James, after reconsideration and based on new perspectives raised by recent student work, the panel has decided not to move forward with the screening of Through Her Eyes. We encourage you to submit a revised version next semester." A revised version? That script was us. It was the one thing I had put everything into. I didn't just write that film, I bled it. Shot every frame on my old Canon, stayed up 36 hours editing, sacrificed grades, skipped holidays with family. And they shelved it because Mara cried on stage and called it truth. I replied asking for clarification. Got nothing back. Just silence. I felt like a ghost on campus. People still nodded when they saw me, but no one met my eyes for long. My closest friends stopped texting. One even asked me to give Mara space. I wasn't angry. I was humiliated. This wasn't just about being misunderstood. This was exile. Weeks passed. My room became my world. Curtains closed. Phone silenced. I barely touched my laptop except to scroll through anonymous forums or rewatch my film, trying to convince myself it still meant something. The part that broke me the most wasn't her betrayal. It was realizing how quickly people believed her, as if they were just waiting for an excuse to turn. But then, one night, I got a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Amber. She was a senior when Mara and I were just starting out. A brilliant actress. Way too sharp for drama club politics. She moved to LA after graduation to pursue acting. We hadn't kept in touch, but the message was clear. Hey James, I saw the video of her monologue, the crying one that went viral. I think you need to know something. We called. Amber didn't waste time. She did the same thing to me, she said. Same blueprint. Different stage. I was directing a play my senior year. Mara was a freshman. She got cast in a minor role, but we got close. Really close. I opened up to her. Told her about my breakdown the year before, about being hospitalized after a suicide attempt. Next semester, she did a short monologue piece in her acting class. Everyone praised her for how raw and honest it was. Except it wasn't hers. It was mine. Word for word. My blood ran cold. I confronted her, Amber continued. She told me art is universal, that pain doesn't belong to anyone. I let it go. I was about to graduate. Didn't want the drama. But when I saw her show last month, the things she said about you, I knew the pattern. I sat in stunned silence. Everything Mara had done to me, the emotional rewriting, the calculated exposure she'd done before. She was a collector. Of pain. Of stories. But only if they weren't hers. Fueled by rage and clarity, I started looking deeper. It wasn't hard. Mara's new followers were loud. Arrogant. I found a podcast she did the week after her show went viral. The host praised her as the next Phoebe Waller-Bridge and asked about her process. Mara said this. I think the most authentic stories come from listening to what's unspoken. People reveal everything if you just stay quiet long enough. She wasn't an artist. She was a scavenger. And then came the final knife. She announced a publishing deal. A small press picked up her script, The Spotlight Syndrome, for a print release and possible stage licensing. It was going national. My erasure was going mainstream. And she did it all while painting herself as the survivor, the brave girl who stood up to an unnamed manipulator who just happened to resemble me in every single damn scene. So I made a choice. No more hiding. No more shame. If she wanted an encore, I'd give her one. But this time, I'd be the one holding the script. And I'd make damn sure the curtain didn't fall without my truth being heard. I always believed that revenge was beneath me. That real artists, real men, rise above it, channel their pain into something better. Something transcendent. But after what Mara did, that belief felt like a joke I'd been tricked into telling myself. She didn't just steal my story, she turned it into a weapon. And I was done being the quiet casualty. I started planning the day after Amber's call. Not out of bitterness. Out of necessity. I couldn't take my life back by appealing to people's better nature. Because when it came to her, they didn't want truth, they wanted a narrative. And Mara? She gave them a perfect one. The soft-voiced girl in a velvet spotlight, speaking her truth with teary eyes and a trembling jaw. The broken boy with a camera who used her, manipulated her, didn't see her. It didn't matter that none of it was real. It mattered that it felt real. So I had to do what she did, but better. More precise. More brutal. But real. Step 1 was the script. I opened a blank document and titled it, The Footnote. A story about a filmmaker who falls in love with an actress, only to have her mine his grief, twist his honesty, and use it to climb higher while stomping out everything he'd ever built. No fictional names. No vague references. It wasn't a script. It was a confession. A confrontation. A scalpel. And every word was hers and mine, the stolen lines, the plagiarized monologues, the DMs from Amber, the emails from professors who buried their own guilt in silence. Step 2. Evidence. Amber came through with an old video from her acting class, the monologue Mara had lifted. I compared it to a section from The Spotlight Syndrome. Verbatim. I created a short side-by-side video. Split screen. Her performance on the left. Mara's on the right. Even the pauses matched. Step 3. Timing. I waited until the night of her official launch party for the print release of her script. She posted pictures from the venue, a cozy indie bookstore downtown, fairy lights, artsy chalkboard signs, a microphone stand surrounded by flowers. People gushed in her comments. Can't wait to read your truth. You're so brave for sharing your pain. I'm bringing tissues. So I uploaded the video. And then, I uploaded everything else. The plagiarized work, the matching monologues, the emails from my professors reversing decisions after her show went viral, a clipped excerpt from the podcast where she casually admitted to listening to pain like it was currency. And then I attached my script, the footnote. I didn't ask people to believe me. I asked them to watch. I turned my phone off after posting, not out of fear. I just didn't care what people said anymore. I only cared about what they saw. And the silence in my apartment, for once, didn't feel like exile. It felt like power. It didn't take long. When I turned my phone back on 18 hours later, it was chaos. The video had nearly 800,000 views. My inbox was flooded. My old film professors had emailed. Even campus admin was suddenly interested in reviewing certain policies regarding student IP and plagiarism. But what hit hardest were the comments under Mara's new book post. Care to explain this, Mara? This looks exactly like Amber Lynn's monologue from 2019. I was in that class. You really said pain doesn't belong to anyone? So what part of your trauma was actually yours? She went silent. For someone who lived in the spotlight, Mara didn't say a single word. No statement. No response. Just deleted comments, locked accounts, and a story post with the words, taking time offline. Please be kind. But it was too late. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel like I'd won. But I finally felt seen. Not because people took my side. Because they understood what was taken from me and what she did to get it. And as much as I hated it, I knew she wasn't done. Because girls like Mara, they don't fall. They reset. I ran into her 2 weeks later. By accident. Or maybe not. 2 weeks. That's how long it took for her to try re-entering the world. I hadn't planned on seeing her again. But fate, irony, whatever you want to call it, has a way of staging scenes you'd never write yourself. I was grabbing coffee at the tiny corner place near the campus theater. The one where the baristas always forget to spell your name right and the walls are covered in Polaroids of drama kids with bad dye jobs and over-earnest smiles. I looked up when the bell above the door rang. And there she was. Mara. No makeup. Hair pulled back into a low bun. Dressed in muted tones like she was trying to blend into the wallpaper. But it was her. I'd recognize that posture anywhere. The spine that knew the stage. The shoulders that knew they were being watched. She saw me almost immediately. Froze for a second. Then walked straight toward my table like she was stepping into a scene she'd rehearsed. James. Her voice was soft, hoarse. Not performative. She sat down before I said anything. I stared at her. I wasn't angry. I wasn't nervous. I just waited. I read the footnote, she said, folding her hands on the table. I guess I deserve that. I sipped my coffee. You deserved a hell of a lot worse, I said flatly. She flinched, just barely. But she didn't look away. I'm not going to ask you to forgive me. I know I ruined things. And not just between us. She inhaled sharply. I don't even know who I am anymore. Everything I said, everything I wrote, it was like I believed it until I didn't. She paused, her voice trembling for real this time. I was so afraid of being invisible again. You were the only person who saw me before anyone else did. And I got addicted to that feeling. So I took it. Your light. Your pain. I packaged it like it was mine because people only seemed to care when I was suffering. I let the silence settle. Then I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. You didn't just take my work, Mara. You made me the villain of my own story. You stole my voice and sold it as your survival. She looked down. I know. And now what? I said. You want closure? Redemption? No. She shook her head. I want to tell the truth. This time for real. I'm stepping down from the theater program. I told the department head everything. I'm pulling the book. I blinked. You're pulling the book? She nodded. And I emailed Amber. Apologized. I asked if I could write a public piece, not to explain, but to admit, not for forgiveness. Just because it's the only thing I can do now that isn't more fiction. I leaned back in my chair, uncertain if I believed her. But she didn't look like the girl I used to know. She looked wrecked, hollowed out and quietly trying to rebuild from the inside. And for the first time, she didn't seem to be acting. You always knew how to hold the spotlight, I said after a beat. You just forgot how to hold yourself. Her eyes watered. She didn't let the tears fall. I know, she whispered. She stood up. I won't bother you again. I just needed you to know that I finally see what you were trying to do with your art. It wasn't about pain. It was about honesty. I didn't respond. I just nodded. And with that, she turned and walked out. No applause. No audience. No curtain. Just the exit. Weeks passed. The university issued a quiet statement about academic ethics. The theater department made changes. Some professors resigned. My film script, The Footnote, got picked up for a short indie series. A real one this time, with real credit. And Mara? She vanished from the spotlight, but not from memory. I sometimes think about what could have been, if she had just told the truth from the start, if we had created together instead of her creating from me. But I don't live there anymore. I live here in the aftermath, where the pain is still real, but it finally belongs to me again. And every time someone watches the series and messages me to say, this hit me like a punch to the ribs, I smile, because finally my story is mine, and she'll always be a footnote, not the headline.